When you're ready. Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak, episode 264. Get rich overnight, but it took 30 years. Got rich overnight. It's getting rich overnight.
How
Mark,
to
talk
get
to me.
rich overnight. We wanted to. Where did it start this morning when we started chatting about it? It was like, you were talking about your buddies.
Yeah, I came to the conclusion, or I just sort of came, basically, an agent works best with a buyer when the buyer's already come to the conclusion that they want to, that property investment is their path, is their wealth creation strategy, compared to shares or businesses or some other plan, cryptocurrency. And then you can work within that with that buyer for the best strategy within the property investment. Where I came to that conclusion was when you have someone who goes, why property? Why not shares when I make 10%? Why not this? Especially if they're in that financial game. And I was just like, you know what? It can be pretty broad on selling the property investment strategy where there's so many, I don't know, cliche arguments. And unless you're sort of a believer, there's always that anti when they haven't had that experience. And I think agents will have that as well, where you're dealing with that buyer who they may have been very successful elsewhere, or they just don't know, but they're very skeptical on property. Those buyers are very, very hard to convert to property, where if you deal with someone who's may not have got the experience, but they know property is the way forward, or it's at least not necessarily the best path, but it's the path they want to go down. And then you can work within the property market which way to go forward, if that makes sense.
Well, you know what? I remember Lee Woodward was saying to me, one of the best trainers, real estate trainers in the country, and he said, Mark, you know, the people that I meet that the best trainers and that are the best principals in the country, he says they don't try to get they try to get a salesperson that's keen and that's sitting at a proficiency of 5 out of 10, and they move them up to an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. He said it takes so much more energy trying to get someone from a 9 to a 9.25. So he said, and which to support what you're saying, people that are not believers in property, it's like it's much easier to sort of preach to the converted and take those people up a notch, rather than to preach to people that are like, you know what, I'm not sure about crypto, I'm not sure about stocks, I'm not sure about this. They're the people that you want to work with in your business. And I think if you're you know, it's almost very disheartening if you've got a whole bunch of non-believers and you're trying to convert those people. It's much more heartening working with people that understand property and want to buy a property. You know, that's what I reckon. And then, which is going to move over to our next part of what we're going to talk about, which is getting rich quick.
Yeah, I would just say to add on that, when I was saying what I was saying, it made me feel like it's almost like religion. You believe or you believe, like it's almost like you got to be a believer to work with us, or that's what is best. That's what I was sort of in the back of my mind. It felt like I was preaching for a cult. You've got to be one of the believers. But
well, you know, there's that saying.
It's all true.
A great saying is environment loads the gun and nature pulls the trigger.
Yes.
Hey, Anmar. Hey, Phil. Hey, Luke. And environment loads the gun and nature pulls the trigger. So if you put yourself in an environment, a great environment, a supporting environment for whatever that may be, your nature will naturally pull the trigger on that. If you put yourself in a crime environment, a life of crime, you know, next thing you know, by nature, you'll do your style of crime. If you put yourself in where I'm going with this is, I think, Michael, that people, we're in an environment of property, so we're dealing with a specific cat or specific animal. So we only know the good parts and see the good parts, and then our nature pulls the trigger in what we do. So I think that some of the people that we may speak with, like you were saying, they're not in that environment to see those benefits, to make that call, and you've got to accept that, eh?
And that's where it was. It was like, there's no right or wrong. Like, they're in finance, they're seeing people make all the money in that way. And then it's like, why should I buy property? Go. You got 30 seconds. Like, well, fuck. Like, it's good. Philip, good to have you on. Luke and Mel. Luke, just buy. Team, action, patience. Now that will get to where we're leading. We're getting rich overnight.
Luke's spot on. Yep.
Let's preach to the converted sort of thing, and the people who are looking to buy the property. And sometimes their mindset is just a little different to the mindset of people who we deal with regularly in property, who you would say are successful, have a lot of property, and sort of their mindset when buying, selling, if they're ever selling, and the reason. And well, let's face it, some very successful people do sell, but they have different motivations in selling. They're not selling because they think the market's topped out. They're normally selling on a progression for something else. But start at the beginning, Mark, like getting rich overnight through property, but it took 30 years. You're dealing with a lot of successful people. You live in the East, which is typically a wealthier area. And what sort of your experience with yourself? I'll give you a little pat there, and with other people, that your friends, colleagues, and clients out East.
Oh, look, I think Luke's touched on a big one. Like, it's definitely patience, but when these guys hit, they don't miss. They're never in and out. They're never in and out of it for the $50,000 kill or the $100,000 kill. They're in it. They're almost generational buyers. They're not buying to flick it, and that's a game of patience. And and even internally in our office, when we look at people, very successful people in our office, when they hit, they don't miss. And it's just a trait that of a great. And look, I know Rich is very fickle. Like, and I know we straight away turn to money, and we straight away turn to real estate investment properties. But wealth, I think, getting a bit herbal this morning, but wealth is I always classify as he who dies happiest wins.
Yes.
So that's wealth, and that the traits for that wealth are all the same. So whether you're collecting investment properties, or whether you're collecting exercise, or both, or whether you're collecting love and a great marriage and children, whatever that may be, that wealth and what you have to do for that, there are principles that we see across our clients and families and friends that are very, very simple, and they're sometimes very foreign. So I'll talk to someone about those principles, and they're like, really, it's like, there was thousands of decisions to get to that, and you screwed up on half of them. Didn't you see it? No.
Well, I think the big one is it's not, what's that saying? It's not time. It's not, I don't know, time in the market. It's time. It's not time. Do you know the one? It's basically, it's not time on the market, it's time in the market, or something along those lines. And what I mean by that is, I think there's a lot of people who may.
Yeah, and look, these clients and that I'm measuring as wealthy, they definitely have the traits of being patient, solid, focused, not knockabout type of people, and it's duration, and it is, these guys have not built a massive. If you look at any of these guys that have built massive empires, then again, that may be 5 kids, or that may be a bucket load of money. I don't know, but these massive empires are built over a tremendously long amount of time. But when you look at that empire, you don't see that the roots of that iceberg or that tree. You don't see how deep it's been going on for.
Thank you, Luke. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market. It's that patience, it's that long game. Because I find instead of people having that ethos, that strategy when getting into property, they're thinking, where am I going to underbuy something? Screw a seller to buy it well. Or I'm going to buy something, flip it, sell it, make all this money. I feel that's the wrong ethos. Even how our property structure is, the cost of selling is so large, it's not a model to be buying and flip. Like, it's just, when you look at it from that, how expensive it is to buy and sell, stamp duty, those huge agent fees, taxes, it's not the model to encourage buying and flipping. So that maybe it's more to do with the time in the market rather than that sort of attitude and ethos. And I find
it's almost guaranteed as well.
Yeah, and I find where you can have that conversation with the person who's already converted to let's do property, but they come in with the mindset, oh, let's buy and flip. That's what I hear everyone does well. They develop. But then you actually can then say to them, well, actually, overall, most of the successful people I know, they've never developed anything. It's actually buying and holding. Look at your holding costs. And they go, oh, it's not going to cost you anything. It's a much simpler approach, but it is very hard to do nothing. And it's even harder to do it for a consistent time.
Well, I was with a daughter's buddy of mine last night, Theo, and he's 22 and he's out of uni now for a year, and he's going like, I just don't get how you get on the path. And I was referencing, like, when I was 18, I bought a property and I still own that property. And then you could see the penny drop with him. It was like,
yeah,
wow, what, you still own the same property? Yeah, I did. And then I bought another one a year later and I still own that place. And then I was going through the numbers with him and he was like, shit, that's like 27 years ago. And I think that, Theo would have been there, like, saying, oh, this is cool, like, family life, this is the Novak family and their life and stuff. But he didn't, when you quantify that, no, that's where you start, peel it all the way back, and that's where you start, then I think people have to realize that it's definitely a long game. It's definitely a long game.
And I think, like, the first level, what we're saying, once you sort of that path, worry about the time in the market, then the timing. And then the next level of strategy is what Luke has brought up, where he wants both timing and time in. And that's where you can get that. It's almost like a degree mark in property investment. It's almost like just basically enter the course, as in buying a property, and then as the time goes past, you increase your level of education where you can pick better times to buy, better properties to buy, and then you may pick properties that you can instead of just buying a house, you're buying a house that you can add a granny flat. Instead of just buying a house with a granny flat, you're buying a house with a granny flat and then maybe creating a third income. And there's so many different levels, but you've got to get into the course first.
And you know what? I find this really embarrassing to admit, but the stock market, good stock, the stock market performs better than the property market. Fact, it does, right? So when you consider that, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take my money and go and buy stocks. Well, see if the government's going to give you a 5% deposit to buy a stock. See if the bank's going to let you borrow 95%. See if there's no stamp duty or no land tax or no capital gains tax. Like, it's a zero tax environment, negative gearing benefits. Like, when you start adding all that stuff up and say, okay, I'm going to go and buy stocks, like, your buddies that were investors are probably right in what they're saying.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is it the right environment to start building your wealth on that?
And I like Luke's point here. You learn so much when you got skin in the game. Think how much you study when you're at uni, when you know you're going to have that 50 grand debt. If you put it the same way into property, you've got a $500,000 debt. You should educate yourself, even though you can do it with no property education, but you will do a lot better with when you educate yourself. And if you've got that debt and you want to create it better, it's a good starting point as well. And it's like any industry. But the great thing about property, unlike, let's say, finance and stocks, where I'm sure there's people who I'm sure there's a lot of people who have done really well who have never bought property, but they're doing a uni degree, a master's, a PhD into what companies and what to look for. At least property, you can start without anything and you can grow on that, which is a beautiful thing.
And you know, to finish off on, a man works to his commitments.
Yeah.
And something that, and Michael, you can vouch for that emotion that you've been feeling lately about a particular mortgage that you've been dealing with. You know, like and you know, it's sometimes just that it's like marriage, or it's like children, or it's a mortgage, or it's that commitment of committing to something, whatever that may be. It's a beautiful thing, and it pushes you and drives you to do better. So, you know, it's, you know, and I know the reason why we brought up Michael's place today is there was tenants in and out of the property. So we were chatting about, you know, how that works, and mortgage repayments and stuff like that, and driving income higher. Returns, we're doing the tax and all that on it. So at the end of the day, guys and girls, it's very, very important to make that commitment and stand by that commitment. And I find that property, again, is an easier thing to do that too. And those landlords, the super wealthy landlords that we're dealing with, they make these commitments and they actually follow through on them.
It's true. Stay consistent. That's a wrap. That went quick. That was good. I hope it made sense and added value. It was a bit, I don't know. A lot of time we do technical stuff. This is more conversational based, but I liked it. It was good. Loved all the input from Luke, Michael. You guys are the best. Philip, always on each morning. And I hope you're enjoying StreamYard. Let us know. We were using Zoom before. StreamYard now. You can have the comments pop up. And I'd really like to know if the viewer experience is better with StreamYard. Love your feedback.
Giddy up.
Thanks, guys. Speak to you all tomorrow.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. It's going to be an incredible day out there, just like yesterday, apparently. And very exciting news. It was my highest solar generation day on my house yesterday, since the solar panels have been in the last 9 months. Yeah.
Let's do one on solar. We'll talk about solar.
It was a beautiful arc of solar yesterday that all solar roofs in Sydney got.
Beautiful. And Philip said mentor is essential. 100%. Mentor education is key. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Thank you, everyone.
See everybody.